Families of 21 young people who died at the Enyobeni Tavern in East London a year ago continue to mourn their lives. It's 1 year since that tragedy occurred. It was a celebration of the end of exams, end of mid-year exams at Pens Down party. The children were underage and they died at that tavern. The owners of the tavern, of course, are currently on trial, but only for selling alcohol to minors. They're due back in court next month. The eNCA's Ronald Masinda has been on the story today, and he joins us now. Ronald, thank you so much for joining us. It must be a very difficult event to see these parents who are mourning their children. 1 year on, they've lost their loved ones, but also so many unanswered questions. We've had 3 different reports talking about how they died. The first was talking about that there was a stampede. Then there was talk of illegal alcohol and methanol in the alcohol. And the last we heard was suffocation. But is there actually detailed information of what happened in that tavern that led to so many young people dying?
Good evening, Sally. Before I come to that answer, I did speak to Enyobeni Tavern, who is the aunt of the latest Sinothando Mgangala, 17-year-old who was among the 21 that died at Enyobeni Tavern. And she was saying that now is the time for parents to stop blaming themselves for what happened. Of course, there was outrage from society asking where were the parents when these young kids went out during the early hours of the morning, the youngest being the tender age of 13. She says if there's anyone to blame, firstly, it will be the owners, Siya Kangela and Vuyokazi Ndevu, who, according to the parents, knew that they were selling alcohol to kids under the age of 18, and this has been happening for months. There were concerns raised by residents who also brought in liquor authorities in the Eastern Cape and the police, alerting them about what has been taking place there at Enyobeni Tavern. But to come to your question, Sally, what we also heard from the parents, and this is according to Enyobeni, they believe that the children were poisoned and that there might have been some poisonous substance poured into their drink when they went on this Pens Down party. She says that when they discovered some of the bodies, they could see a foam-like substance coming out of the children's mouths. And this is despite the Eastern Cape Health Department issuing a toxicology report to suggest that the children died of suffocation. This is what Enyobeni had to say further.
The reason why I believe on that, the appearance of the corpses when we were viewing our children. For an example, some of the children had some foam that was coming out of their mouth. Some had, for an example, mine is a yellow bone that is light in color, but she was grayish with this sort of some very dark colors in the skin, which proves that there has been something that they ate in there. So that's why we don't believe that it was only suffocation. And secondly, we were told that the stampede is ruled out from day one after they have examined the bodies. But based on the pressure that we gave unto them, they just gave us something because they wanted us to get off their hands. So, which is why we are saying today, if our government, if the authorities are pretty sure of the fact that our children were killed due to stampede, why are our results not into our hands today? It's if they are sure of the fact that there were only 3 chemicals that they detected from the corpses. What is it that they are hiding that makes them not to give us the results so that we can see what they are saying?
You know, it's interesting, Ronald, because we thought we would all hear exactly what went wrong, and then right at the end we were told each family will be told the cause of death. But it's clear, listening to that family member, that they feel they've been fobbed off by the authorities and not given the real story. And that tends to flourish, those attitudes, when you haven't been given all the information that's available. And that, I would imagine, makes it very hard for the families to get any sort of closure. Of course, we do know there's a court case underway, that the Enyobeni Tavern owners are facing charges, but that's just because of selling alcohol to minors. Is there a possibility that more charges will be added? What can you tell us?
So according to the state, there could be a jail term if they are found guilty for selling alcohol to children under the age of 18. But just to add, Sally, to some of the sentiments that were made during today's memorial, Mama Ntombi Zonke also saying that, they also, part of them, blame government because they feel that in the old days when corporal punishment was still around, it was a way of disciplining kids. So it's difficult for them to discipline the children. But what is the concern, Sally, is that while we are talking about Enyobeni Tavern and what took place, we are still seeing underage drinking taking place here in the Eastern Cape. In fact, during this weekend, around 700 young people descended on the beaches in the Eastern Cape, many of whom alcohol was confiscated and they were under the drinking age. Now, this is cause for concern, and the Buffalo City Metro also flagging these worries where 15 people were also arrested due to drunk driving. But the court case continues on the 19th of July. It is on trial, and we've seen state witnesses coming forward. Some of them were part of that gathering at Enyobeni Tavern, and they said that Siakangela Ndevu, who manages the place, the ownership is with Vuyokazi Ndevu, was actually at that particular gathering when all the commotion took place. And one even alluded to seeing Siakangela Ndevu going through some of the bodies that were lying dead there at his tavern. So Khululekile Ngandana is one of the parents who says that Ndevus have shown no remorse a year on.
Forgiveness, it's a big weight. And before someone has to be forgiven, he or she needs to show remorse. But as far as Mr. Ndevu, he doesn't show any remorse for the mere fact that he goes to that area where our children passed away and does what he has been doing, to be told that he's selling bottles or whatever, but still, that's still to run a business. Yes, we've heard about him trying to open another tavern around Scenery Park, but the community of this area didn't allow that. They made sure that this doesn't happen. So we are so grateful to the community of Scenery Park for standing up for the right things, for what they believe is right, to say nothing like this they will allow to happen in their area, more especially for someone who's still before the courts of law, but he still wants to continue as if nothing has happened.
Ronald, before I let you go, I remember when this tragedy happened. I mean, it was horrific. And we spoke to a lot of officials, and one of them said to us that this was an opportunity for change, that they would use this to make sure that recreation centres were built for young people, that parks were upgraded for young people, specifically in these areas where these children come from. A year later, have you seen any visible difference in terms of the recreation facilities that are now being offered to young people?
So according to residents of Scenery Park, who we have been speaking to for several days, they say nothing much has changed and that these have been empty promises. But what we understand, and this is according to the Eastern Cape Liquor Board, they have embarked on various initiatives trying to educate kids not to be involved in alcohol consumption at a young age. We do know that there are also ambassadors who have been recruited at several schools in the Eastern Cape who play a mentorship role to young people to also not engage in underage drinking. But that is the Eastern Cape Liquor Authorities. In terms of the other departments. We've hardly heard of any other initiatives, Sally, that could help people or young people not to engage in underage drinking. But the concern, though, Sally, is that this continues a year on, and we've been speaking to several authorities who say that unless the changes in society, unless children are brought up in different circumstances where they don't see or get exposed to drinking, then things may change. But the concerns are society hasn't changed.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Disheartening news indeed. eNCA reporter Ronald Masinda telling us that 1 year since the Enyobeni tragedy, things have not changed for youngsters in that area, despite promises of better facilities for young people to play sport and other recreation activities.